From Washington, D.C., this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Hena Zuberi. Our top story tonight. In a heavy escalation ahead of a temporary truce, Israeli jets have launched a bombardment on Gaza, resulting in the loss of 100 lives in the past 24 hours. The attacks have not spared hospitals and refugee camps, leading to a significant rise in casualties. One of Gaza's operational hospitals, overwhelmed by the influx of casualties, received over 60 deceased individuals amidst the continuous poundings of the neighborhood by Israeli airstrikes. The Palestinian Health Ministry's latest figures are grim, reporting 14,100 fatalities since October 7, including 5,600 children, with 6,800 people missing and 33,000 injured. Under the deal, Israel will also release about 150 Palestinian women and minors held in its detention centers. The ceasefire, set to commence at 10 a.m. local time Thursday, could extend beyond the initial 4 days with the release of additional hostages. The World Health Organization mourns the death of its local staff member, Dima Abdul Latif Mohammed Al-Hajj, her husband and their infant son, and 2 brothers in a strike, highlighting the personal tragedies unfolding in the conflict. Meanwhile, Israel's cabinet has ratified a deal with Hamas, proposing the release of 50 women and children during the 4-day ceasefire, marking a potential turn in the ongoing hostilities. The agreement, mediated by Qatar, Egypt, and the United States, could see an extension with the release of additional hostages. The Scottish Parliament has voted in favor of an immediate ceasefire in Gaza as the death toll in the region surpasses 17,000. First Minister Hamza Yousaf's motion received strong support, with the Scottish National Party stressing the importance of a ceasefire to facilitate vital humanitarian aid delivery to both Israel and Gaza. Scottish Labour, however, has officially endorsed the call for a full ceasefire and an end to Israel's bombardment of Gaza. Anas Sarwar, leader of the Scottish Labour, backed Yousaf's motion for an immediate truce, breaking ranks with UK Labour leader Keir Starmer's stance. Starmer has supported only pauses for evacuation and aid. Sarwar also openly criticized Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, suggesting his removal from power for lasting peace. The motion was supported by 21 Labour MPs and carried by a 90-28 vote. This move echoed a similar revolt in the UK House of Commons the previous week, when 56 Labour MPs supported a motion calling for a ceasefire. Sarwar consistently urged Starmer to take a tougher stance on Israel's actions. Leaders from the Brics group of major emerging economies have strongly denounced Israel's ongoing bombardment on Gaza. Brics countries include Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. During a virtual summit chaired by South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, Brics leaders called for an immediate end to hostilities from both sides to alleviate the worsening humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip. The group collectively condemned attacks on civilians in both Palestine and Israel. It specifically focused on the forced displacement of Palestinians, calling it war crimes. Its statement emphasized the rejection of any form of mass forcible transfer and deportation of Palestinians from their homeland. While China and Russia were represented by their presidents, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi opted out due to provincial elections campaigning commitments. India was represented by External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. Saudi Arabia has been detaining worshippers openly demonstrating support for Gaza and offering prayers for Palestine within the holy sites of Mecca and Medina. Among those affected is British actor and presenter Islah Abdul Rahman, who embarked on a religious pilgrimage to Mecca in late October. He was detained by Saudi soldiers for his choice to wear a Palestinian keffiyeh, symbolizing his solidarity. Abdul Rahman's detention sheds light on the escalating crackdown against any form of symbolism or expression of support for Palestine within Saudi Arabia. He was escorted to an off-site facility where individuals deemed potential suspects of crimes or offenses are detained. Abdul Rahman was questioned about his nationality, purpose of visit, place of origin, and duration of stay in the country. He was later released. A 50-year-old computer science professor has been released on reduced bail in Ventura County, California. Loy Al-Naji has been charged with involuntary manslaughter and battery in connection with the accidental death of a counter-protester during a pro-Palestine demonstration. Al-Naji's lawyer argued he was not involved in the incident. The 69-year-old victim, Paul Kessler, fell and sustained fatal injuries during a confrontation at the protest. Al-Naji, who denies the charges, was released from custody after his bail was reduced from $1 million to $50,000. The case has garnered significant attention. Supporters, including Al-Naji's family and students, were present during his arraignment. The Greater Los Angeles area office of the Council on American Islamic Relations described the incident as a tragic accident. Bringing more news stories after the break. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back. Reports have come in that indicate that the Israeli military was also responsible for Israeli civilian and military deaths on October 7th and the days after. An Israeli lieutenant colonel disclosed the Hannibal Directive may have been used on a mass scale. The military protocol involves the military killing Israeli civilians before they are taken as captives. Lieutenant Colonel Nof Erez told Israeli newspaper Haaretz that the Israeli army has run drills to test the Hannibal Protocol for the past 20 years, despite its apparent suspension since 2016. Erez, who coordinated a helicopter mission during the ongoing Gaza attacks, was reportedly dismissed as a pilot after criticizing the Israeli Prime Minister. Israeli newspaper Yedot Afronot also reported on the military's aerial response. A police investigation revealed Hamas had no prior knowledge of the festival, where many were killed. In a warning to domestic media after the Haaretz report, Israel's police force denied that there were any indications that any air activity in the region harmed civilians. The military censorship unit imposed restrictions on Gaza-related news. Israeli politicians and military officials are facing accusation of inciting war crimes with their violent rhetoric during the Israeli aggression on Gaza, which scholars are now calling genocide. International legal experts are debating whether such language constitutes war crimes. The attack on Gaza and decades of systematic Israeli settler policy of violence towards Palestinians have also drawn scrutiny as potential war crimes. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's reference to a biblical passage urging the extermination of an entire tribe and his commitment to destroying the, quote, enemy have sparked controversy. Israel's finance minister Bezalel Smotrich suggested the voluntary evacuation of Gazans to end suffering. Another minister called for the elimination of Hamas supporters. Moshe Feiglin, the founder of Israel's right-wing Zehut party, has called for the complete destruction of Gaza. Such comments have raised concerns about freedom of expression and collective punishment, adding complexity to the International Criminal Court's investigation into the Gaza conflict. Amnesty International has called for an immediate investigation into alleged war crimes by Israel in Gaza, citing 2 incidents with no apparent military targets. The first involved the bombing of the St. Porphyrius Greek Orthodox Church, where 450 civilians sought refuge. The second was the bombing of a residence in Al-Nusayrat refugee camp, resulting in 46 civilian casualties, including 20 children. Amnesty International argues these actions are part of a concerning pattern of disregarding Palestinian civilian safety. The International Criminal Court may step in to investigate if Israel does not conduct its inquiry under the Rome Statute, Article 8. Israel, though a signatory of the Rome Statute, is no longer an ICC member. Israeli Defense Forces deny war crimes allegations, claiming Hamas placed military operations near civilians. An ongoing ICC investigation into the 2014 Israel-Hamas conflict has now expanded to include recent events. Amnesty International also has accused Hamas of war crimes. The U.S. has initiated a review of potential terror designations for the Yemeni Houthi group. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby said in light of recent targeting of civilians by the Houthis and the piracy of a ship in international waters, the U.S. is reviewing potential terrorist designations. He was referring to the seizure of the Galaxy Leader cargo ship co-owned by an Israeli company by the Houthis in the Red Sea earlier this week. Kirby said that the seizure is a clear violation of international law and accused Iran of complicity. The spokesman urged the Yemeni group to release the ship and crew immediately and, quote, unconditionally. Former President Donald Trump's administration designated the Houthis as a foreign terrorist organization in January 2021. But the Biden administration reversed the designation 1 month later, citing humanitarian concerns. A U.S. Air Force AC-130 gunship hit some targets in Iraq, authorities say. According to the Pentagon, it was a retaliatory strike against Iran-backed militant targets who had fired a close-range ballistic missile at the Al-Assad airbase. Pentagon spokeswoman Sabrina Singh noted U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria have faced 66 hacks since October 17, resulting in about 62 injuries. Singh emphasized the U.S. desire to avoid being drawn into a regional conflict and expressed confidence in its target selection. Iranian-backed militia have been blamed for recent attacks on U.S. facilities. A new UN report paints a grim picture of the world's climate future. It notes that current climate action plans would result in a devastating 2.9 degrees Celsius of global warming by 2100. The 2023 Emissions Gap Report, released ahead of the upcoming COP28 conference in the UAE, calls for an urgent 28% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres referred to this alarming gap as an emissions canyon, symbolizing broken promises, lives, and records. The report highlights 2023's alarming string of temperature records and extreme weather events, making it potentially the hottest year in 125,000 years. Global greenhouse gas emissions rose by 1.2% between 2021 and 2022, reaching a record 57.4 gigatons of carbon dioxide equivalent. The report underscores the urgent need to phase out fossil fuels and emphasizes current pledges and actions fall far short to avert catastrophic climate impacts. Experts stress the necessity of ambitious climate commitments to address the looming climate emergency. The report noted national actions since the 2015 Paris Agreement have made a difference. In response to Pakistan's nationwide crackdown on undocumented foreigners, more than 400,000 Afghans have returned to their homeland, according to Pakistani authorities. The Pakistani government announced all individuals lacking proper documentation had to leave Pakistan by October 31st or face arrest. However, the 1.4 million Afghans registered as refugees were exempt from this directive. The latest Afghan exodus was triggered by the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan in 2021. Pakistan also imposed new visa requirements for residents in the Chaman border town who were previously allowed to cross freely. Protests erupted in Chaman, disrupting repatriation efforts. Residents are asking the Pakistani government to allow them to continue using special permits for business and to meet with relatives who live in the Afghan border city of Spin Boldak. The World Health Organization has issued warnings about the nearly 1.3 million Afghans returning under harsh winter conditions. International and domestic human rights groups have criticized these expulsions. Meanwhile, the Taliban-led Afghan government is providing aid to returnees. That's all from our Washington, D.C. studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for the latest updates. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.